How much money do I need to invest in property? Now, this is a question I'm often asked by people who want to start investing in property, and it's a really important question, so I want to dedicate this particular YouTube video to this question. Now, my name's Simon Zutshi. I've been investing in property for over 26 years. And when I started investing, I didn't have any money at all. In fact, most people run out of money at some point. So most people believe you need to have lots of money to invest. But actually, when you know how to find great deals, I don't believe you need any of your own money. But I'll come to that later in the video. So I'm the author of Property Magic, the Amazon property #1 bestseller. We sold over 100,000 copies. I'm the founder of the Property Investors Network, which was the very first and the longest running and now the largest network of property investor network meetings around the UK. And I've helped thousands of people just like you to become successful investors. So what I want to do is give you some fundamental training about property investing. If you do it the traditional, conventional way, where you absolutely will need money to invest, and I'll explain some of the slightly different alternative ways where you don't need a lot of money to invest in property. Now let's look at a typical investment of, say, a £200,000 property, just to keep the numbers really simple. And obviously around the country, there are many areas where property costs a lot more than 200,000, many areas where it costs a lot less, but let's just use it for ease of numbers. Now, when you invest in property to buy an investment buy-to-let property, so this is not your own home, this is a property that you rent out to other people. And the idea is you make profit, monthly cash flow, and if you have enough rental properties, you can replace your income. This is what I was able to do in 2001, where I left my full-time job at Cadbury's, where I became a senior manager, thanks to the income from my property. So the idea is you buy a property, let's say 200,000, you always would borrow other people's money by getting a mortgage. And most banks in the UK will give you a 75% loan to value mortgage. That means they'll give you 75% of the value. So if they're worth 200,000, you buy for 200,000, they'll give you 75% of that, which is a £150,000 mortgage. That means that you have to put in the deposit, in this case, £50,000. Now this is where many people get stuck. Now you might have lots of money. Maybe you've done really well in business, maybe have a high paid job, maybe you've inherited some money, maybe you've just had your own home and the value's gone up over time and you realize you can use the equity in your own home to start building a property portfolio. And that's how most people start in property. So they start buying properties, they put in a deposit, they then hold those properties for a period of time. As the value goes up, which tends to happen in the UK because we live on an island with a limited supply of accommodation and an increasing population. Thus, over the long term, property prices tend to go up. Now, they don't always go up. It's a cyclical market. They come up and they come down. But the long-term trend is up. So people buy a property, they hold it for a number of years. As the value of the property goes up and the rents go up, they then remortgage the property. So they increase the amount of borrowing to take out the initial deposit to go and buy another property. And that's how most people build their property portfolio. The problem is it can take a very long time. It's a very slow process. And most of the people who I help, they want to quickly build a portfolio so they can quickly replace their income, which means they can start spending their time doing whatever they want with their life instead of having to go to work, which is a pretty cool thing, right? So, how can you invest in property if you don't have much money? Or even if you have money, at some point you'll run out. So there are a number of strategies you can use where you don't actually need much of your money at all. Now, the first one is called rent to rent. This is where you find a landlord who's got a property that they're struggling to rent for some reason. Maybe they live in a different city, they're a distant landlord. Maybe they've given it to a letting agent who's not very good. And you come in, you give a guaranteed rent to the owner, and the idea is what you pay to them is less than you could rent it out for. So you make a profit, a margin on renting the property out to someone else. You might rent it out as a serviced accommodation, which is short-term let. You might do an HMO, which is a house of multiple occupation where you're renting out individual rooms. Number of different strategies you can use. Now, the reason a landlord would do this is they just want a regular monthly payment. They could make more if they rented it out themselves, but actually they just don't want the hassle. So this is where you can come in, you are effectively managing the property for them. It's not a passive income, it's hands-on for you, but it can work really, really well. And it's a strategy that many people start with just to, put their toe in the water, see if they like property. Now, rent to rent is fantastic, but there's a strategy that's even better than rent to rent, and that's called a purchase lease option. Now, it's very similar to rent to rent. You rent a property from an owner, you give them a guaranteed rent each month, you rent it out for more money. But the big difference is you also have the right to buy that property at some point in the future if you want. You set a price today, you rent it, you make income in the meantime, and in the future you could buy, and the price might be up here, but you've agreed a price that's down here. So even if you agree to buy for the current full market value, the current full market value might well be discounted in the future if the value's gone up. So it's a very powerful strategy. Most people do not understand purchase lease options, so actually there's not actually that much competition. It'll be well worth you learning. In fact, if I had to start again, having been investing for 26 years, I've done pretty much every strategy out there. If I had to start again from scratch, the thing I would learn first is purchase lease options, because it works with every other strategy. Then there are other ways of funding deals using none of your own money. There's something called vendor finance. And this is where you find someone who's selling a property, they want to sell a property, they want to get a full price, but they don't really need the money from the sale. They don't want to do an option, they want to get rid of the property out of their name so you can buy the property. And there are various ways that you can use the equity in that property where essentially the owner is lending you the money. Now, just to be clear, you cannot do this with a traditional mortgage company, because they want to see you put some money in, they want to see you have some skin in the game. However, there are ways of working with bridging companies and specialist lenders who will recognize the equity that the owner is lending you as deposit, which means you don't have to put a lot of money in. Again, these might be things you've heard about, you might know about, you might not. By getting educated and trained, you can learn that these strategies of controlling and buying property using very little of your own money. You can also do what's called a joint venture. You see, there are people who've got money, but they don't have the time, the knowledge, or the inclination to actually go and find property deals themselves. So if you become really good at finding great deals, because you get some training and education, you learn how to do that, you can then find people at network meetings, at other property events who've got the money but don't have the time or inclination. You've got the deal, you come together, you bring the deal, you do the work, they put all of the money in, and you have some sort of share of the cash flow and also the equity growth. Normally it's a 50-50 share. Or even better than a joint venture is where you do a private loan. And you might think, well, who on earth would lend money to me? Well, they lend money to you because they're getting hardly any money in the bank. So people you know, friends, family, are the best people to work with. And by the way, when you know how to do this, you never have to ask people for money. You just let them know what you're doing, see who might want to make some extra profit, more than they'd make in the bank. You'd be surprised at who actually has money. Most people don't talk about the money they have. It's not seen as etiquette to do that in the UK, but a lot of people have savings, they've got inheritance, they might have money from selling shares or selling some cryptocurrency or from a divorce, whatever, and it's doing nothing for them in the bank. And you can actually help them. So similar to a joint venture, you find the great deal, they put the money in, but instead of them getting a share of profits, they just get some of the monthly cash, they just get a fixed return on their money. And eventually, as their value's gone up, you refinance it to pay their money back to them, or maybe you make the money in some other way to pay them back. Obviously, when using other people's money, you've got to be very careful. You've got to make sure you give it back to them. And obviously, you want to work with people who you like and trust and who already know you. So there are a number of ways of funding your deals. Don't think it has to be the traditional, well, I've got to put 25% deposit in, because at some point you will run out of your own money. It happens to everyone. I've done many, many investments. I've used my money, I've used other people's money, and I've used a combination of the two. So don't be scared. I don't think there's anything wrong by using other people's money. All of the successful investors I know, that's exactly how they fund their property deals. It's a bit of a change in thinking, a bit of a mind shift from the point of thinking, well, I can't do property because I haven't got money. If you get good at finding great deals, if you understand how to use creative finance, then really you don't have to have much money at all to invest. There are are things you can do. A lot of people, I've bought property in the past. I've had a credit card with a nice high facility. I've got a credit card check. I've used that to put down a deposit. I've then also used a credit card to pay for the refurb work. I've then added value to a property. I've then refinanced it to pay off the credit cards. So lots of creative things you can do like that. Personally, I would not recommend you using credit cards or getting loans because after a period of time, the interest rate goes to a very high rate and you don't want to get yourself into financial difficulty. So just because I've done it and other investors have done it in the past doesn't mean you should do that. But I just wanted to share this video with you to give you hope and inspiration that you can absolutely invest in property without a lot of money. And I sometimes meet people who they've got a couple of £100,000 and they're worried that that is not enough. That is absolutely enough. I also meet people who say they've got no money, but they've got their own home that's completely paid off. And they don't realize they could use the equity in their own home to start investing. And I meet people who've got money in their business account. They don't realize they can borrow that from their business, use that for their property, then pay the loan back to their business. There are lots of ways that you can fund your property investing. I do hope this video has been useful for you. If you've liked it, I'd encourage you to click the like button. If you've got any questions, please post them below. I'll answer as many as I possibly can. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel to make sure you get these updates. They come out very regularly with great information to help you become a more successful investor. There's another video lined up you might want to watch. And the final thing I want to say is I've got some brand new online training to teach you how to be a more successful investor. If you've liked this video, I'd like to go into a lot more depth about one of the strategies I talked about, purchase lease options, and I want to help you understand how you can use these to become a far more successful investor. If I had to start at the very beginning, purchase lease options is what I would want to start with, knowing what I know now. So you can click on the link and come and access this brand new high value online training completely free of charge. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, invest with knowledge, invest with skill. Click on the link and come and access this brand new training. Hey, I do hope you've got massive value from watching this and the other videos on this YouTube channel. I've prepared some extra training all about purchase lease options, which is the most powerful tool you could use to control property and works with every other property strategy. You really do need to make sure you understand about this. That's why I put this extra training together for you at no cost. All you have to do is click on the link below the video, come and fill in the details and you get access to that training. And I really think you should definitely do it right now. I've also lined up another video for you that I think might be interesting for you to watch as well. So until the next video, remember to invest with knowledge, invest with skill, and click on the link and come and join me for that additional training all about purchase lease options.